Thanks everyone for joining us in this session. Sorry, let me just find my mouse. There we go. Yeah, I'm conscious that we've kind of caught the lunchtime shift. So if anyone's eating a sandwich or anything like that, that's absolutely fine. Please do, if you have any questions. Oh, it's the chat. Oh yeah, there we go. If you have any questions whatsoever at any point in this session, please do drop them into the chat window just down there. We'd be more than happy to address them. Either we'll pick them up as we go through the session, or we do have some time at the end where we'll cover some questions you might have there as well. There are no stupid questions. There might be some stupid answers, but if there are, they'll be coming from me. So just a little bit of background. So we're here to talk about stable system, stable service, keeping critical NHS services delivering in COVID crisis, which is a very, very long way of saying we don't want our healthcare services to be struggling when we're trying to deal with things like COVID-19. So I'm joined here today by John Pratt from Excell Group, one of our partners in the UK, and the folks that we're going to be talking about are one of his clients. So a little bit of an introduction to myself, in case anyone's not aware of me. That's my cat deciding that she wants to join in this session as well. Yeah, if anyone's not aware of who I am, I'm a senior systems engineer at Runecast. My job is very much to make sure that we're delivering the products that customers need, the feature sets that customers need, and also to make sure that customers and partners are really getting the best value out of their investment in Runecast Analyzer. But before I joined VMware, there we go. Nobody saw that, right? You can tell this is live. Before I joined Runecast, I worked for VMware. And I was the technical architect for vSphere lifecycle size. I spent a lot of time traveling the world, talking to customers, particularly around the problems that they had in terms of vSphere lifecycle and things like firmwares and BIOSes and drivers and all of these kinds of problems. So we'll hopefully cover a little bit about that during the course of today. Other stuff you might need to know about me. Well, none of it's really important actually. So I've got a whole bunch of certifications. I used to run a team of consultants for a reseller in the north of the UK for about 6 and a bit years or so. So my focus, my history is very, very much on the VMware side of things, but I've got a pretty good background in cloud technologies and all of that other stuff as well. Yeah, if anyone wants to hit me up after this, they've got any comments about or any questions that they didn't get to during the session, please hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Kev_Johnson. Or if you want to give me some grief, why not listen to our podcast, Open TechCast, and give us some grief there as well. I'm more than happy to take the feedback. John, how about yourself?
John, I've been working in IT for over 30 years now, working for various MSPs and customers directly. At the moment, I'm working at Excell Group, been here for 3 years, looking after 4 virtualized environments, 2 which are customer hosted, which one of these is DHU, we're going to be talking about. Excell, most of their business originally was voice over IP, so that's where most of our business started. In my spare time, you often find me walking my dog in Epping Forest, or just during lockdown, I've started mountain bike riding as well. So either of the two, I'll be found. Okay.
I've seen a few folks taking up mountain biking during lockdowns, and yeah, I went for a walk in some woods not too far from me, and they were properly going like it's proper steep mountain biking, and yeah. I was just like, yeah, no, not for me. Thank you very much. I would just be straight over a tree trunk and dead in a ditch.
Yeah, we did go out the other day when it was night. It started getting really dark, and that was a new challenge. And again, yeah, if you want to sort of reach out to me, you can get me on Cloud IT blog on Twitter, or reach me on my blog page as well.
Cool. So I think we met probably a couple of years ago now, and yeah, I think we had a chat about one of your customers who was
It was this customer actually.
It was this customer, right?
Yeah,
okay, fair enough.
One of the
less said about that, the better then.
Yeah,
yeah, it's the struggles of of dealing with the interdependencies that you have when you've got various different technologies. Let's actually talk a little bit about the customer. So the customer is it Derbyshire Health United? I think that's what DHU stands for.
Yeah, Derbyshire Health United. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're kind of outcome focused, so they're focused on patient experience, patient safety, and clinical effectiveness. All of these things that you want to hear when you're speaking to someone who's looking after your health or the health of your loved ones, really, isn't it? So there is that. And just a quick slide about their strategic objectives. So they're focused on patient safety, prevention, and self-care. So that's a really important aspect of the healthcare industry. Is this idea that if you can prevent an issue from happening in the first place, that is way more effective. For every pound or every dollar or euro or whatever that you spend in prevention, it's far more effectively spent than time or money spent on a cure of a problem. And that actually, I think, aligns really well with what we do with Runecast Analyzer. Their third objective, supporting the workforce. So again, this kind of ties in with what we do. We're all about enabling the workforce, making sure that folks are able to, that they're properly equipped to do the jobs that they need to do, and where there might be skills gaps, we can help to fill those skills gaps. Good governance, that's a pretty much a no-brainer, right? Everyone wants to make sure that they've got good governance, and I guess what that kind of plays into, the various different security standards that we might have to deal with. And again, that's a struggle for a lot of IT organizations. And then the fifth one is their integration through partnerships. So they work in conjunction with partners like yourselves at Excell Group, and healthcare partners as well. So that's a brief overview in terms of DHU. They've just celebrated 30 years in existence. So they've not just sprung up overnight. I kind of put together another couple of slides just around what they do. So they were formed in '89, and they've got about 2,000 staff distributed around various different areas in Derbyshire. So for those of you not from the UK, Derbyshire's kind of in the middle bit, right? Is that a good description, John?
Yeah. Midlands area, isn't it?
Yeah. So and they work with the NHS. That's the National Health Service in the UK. So they aren't the NHS themselves. They partner with the NHS to provide services to patients within the organisation, within the area, not the organisation. That's a terrible word.
Yeah.
So they provide the 111 phone service, and I'm going to ask John to explain a little bit more about what 111 is, because again, I don't think it's a service that we really see anywhere outside the UK. They're doing 24/7, so it's 24/7, 365. So they're covering, nobody's getting days off or anything like that. So you need to make sure you have the uptime. Integrated urgent care. So wherever there's a need for that urgent care, then potentially DHU are going to be involved. We've covered where they are. They cover apparently nearly 800,000 patients. So that's a lot of people, and they service 12,000 patients annually. So they're looking after a lot of people. Those 2,000 staff they've got, they're doing that 24/7, 365. And the folks that work in the health industry, in healthcare, they've got a super hard job to do. So I want to make sure that we give them the props they deserve. John, do you want to just kind of cover what the 111 service actually does, because that's going to really feed into stuff that we're going to discuss.
So the 111 service is, instead of in the UK you normally dial 999 for an emergency for out of hours medical assistance. They're not urgent, but they are classed as a blue light service.
Okay.
You would call them. You're likely to get a clinical. Could be a nurse. They may have doctors on call as well. There, they have got dentists as well at DHU that they can assist you over the phone with as well. And like it says there, pharmacists as well that are available. So they're offering a wide range of services that you can reach out of hours, or specifically at the time we're in at the moment, they have been the one that's been taking most of the calls.
I can imagine that,
Been recommended by the government that you call them for assistance first, to recommend you on the course of action you should take. So
absolutely. So I guess if I wake up tomorrow and I've got a bit of a cough and I've got a bit of a fever, the advice is I shouldn't go to see my GP. I should call one of these services, and they'll run through in the same way that, if you've got a computer problem, you call the help desk and they'll run through some checks and things and then tell you what the problem is and what you need to do. So yeah, so it's a really important service. It's not kind of danger of death services, but it's anything that's urgent. I don't know about anyone else, and certainly outside of the UK, but if I call my doctor and I need to make an appointment to see them, the first thing they ask me is it an emergency? To which my response is always no, because I haven't called 999. And the next question is usually, well, how long can it wait? And often I'll wait. If I need to see a doctor and they ask if it's urgent, I say, well, my leg's not going to drop off or something like that. I could be waiting two weeks to see a doctor. So it's for that urgent medical care to make sure that the people who really have that need are being serviced at that, at the point of need, rather than a couple of weeks down the line when things may have got significantly worse and you've got hospital admissions with things like COVID. So yeah, really, really important service there.
Direct links just direct links into the NHS as well. So they're on the NHS network, which
absolutely, and a lot of these partners are the same as well, right? So these folks are covering Derbyshire and that kind of area, but there's partners all over the UK that are doing similar sorts of things. But yeah, I think the work that they do is amazing. It's fantastic. So absolutely, round of applause to those folks. So let's kind of move on and talk a little bit about the environments that you folks at Excell Group are supporting. Then, what can you tell me about this?
So the environment, what Excell provide there is we provide DHU with a fully resilient MPLS network across their two sites, which are independent. Both sites are independent of each other. So obviously, if one site goes down, it doesn't take the other one out, but they are linked on our core network. And
you've got all the MPLS is kind of looking after the connectivity between them and into them as well. Okay, cool.
Now both the environments are 7 hosts running vSphere 6.5. We installed last November. I installed vSAN, which is where our initial conversations came when we put vSAN in. We then set up Update Manager and got all of the updates running via that. And they're running Windows vCenter as well.
Right. Okay. So they've got a couple of bits of kind of what we might in the industry call legacy technology. So anything that's running on vCenter on Windows, it's not supported anymore. Or it's supported until the end of life for vCenter 6.7. But you've also got vSphere 6.5 running in the environment, and that's going to be fast approaching end of general support. And I guess that's kind of a risk when you're dealing with any kind of medical stuff or anything like that. Okay, cool.
And they've got a virtualized telephone system that we have installed, which is managed by a third party for that service.
Okay. And that's it says there on the slide there. So that's the telephony system that's supporting that 111 service. So it's super important, mission critical type stuff.
And that's linked,
can't afford downtime.
That's linked in with the NHS system as well, so it goes into their telephone system. So it is quite key.
Okay. So we've got a pretty good idea as to how they're set up. They've got a couple of data centers. You've got a lot of resiliency in the network there. You've got some reasonably legacy tech in there, but you've made the leap from I guess kind of traditional SAN to vSAN, so you've kind of moved in the right direction there. You're still on vSphere 6.5. I'm hoping that there's some sort of plan in terms of migrating from vSphere 6.5 before that goes end of general support. Are there any constraints that you're working with in terms of that?
The constraint we've been hit with is that the system they've got for the telephone doesn't go above 6.5 or didn't go above 6.5.
Okay, so that's your kind of your major constraint from a vendor support perspective. And again,
so that was
critical. We kind of need to make sure that that's up and running.
That's stable, Now we have now been told that can be upgraded. Now at some point we'll be upgrading the system. So
awesome. Sounds like you've got some work on your hands then.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. So if we just kind of click on to The next slide, which kind of more details more the kind of challenges that you're seeing, just in regular business as usual. What kind of problems are you? What pain points are you hitting? What kind of things do you need to make sure that you're covering, rather than just kind of just upgrade to the latest version and everything will be fine?
It's because of the fact the environment is 24/7.
Yeah.
You don't have the opportunities normally, to test something. We've got to take a server out, which isn't a problem because you're running VMware. You haven't got that downtime. You could work on the whole environment, or you could take numerous machines out. So you are very risk aware.
Okay.
And I suppose you're firefighting a lot because you don't get the opportunity to see the issues. You're reactive. You would be reactive all the time.
Yeah, and this is a fairly typical thing that we see when we engage with organisations, is because they don't necessarily even have the oversight into the problems that they have. The first thing that they know about a problem is when something goes down, and then once something goes down, they're kind of fully focused on what do I need to do to get it back up and running. And from that perspective, you get it back up and running as quickly as possible, and then people just kind of lose sight of it. So everything is very much firefighting. There's no real strategy about how you decide. Actually, what we need to do, we keep hitting this particular problem. Why don't we find out what causes that problem and deal with the cause, rather than it's back to what I was saying about the kind of self-care and prevention being more important than the cure. So if you can actually figure out what's causing those problems and prevent those situations from happening, then you can actually prevent the downtime in the first place. I think that's really important. And we've got it on the slide here. It just says subject to numerous standards. So in terms of their healthcare, but I don't think outside of the US, a lot of healthcare organisations aren't subject to HIPAA. What kinds of standards do these folks work with?
They're going through the ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials, and I think there may be another one that they're looking at as well. But it's not really the standard.
Great stuff. Well, I mean, the good news there is about an hour ago, I announced that we've just added support for ISO 27001, and Cyber Essentials should be coming either before the end of the year or very early in the new year. So, we should be able to help them beyond just the troubleshooting side of things going forward. So that's awesome news. So you mentioned, there was this problem in terms of vendor support for this mission critical software telephony system. So I'm guessing that the vendor has now decided, all right, 6.5 is falling off a cliff next year. We need to validate ourselves against newer versions of vSphere. So that's a great thing to happen. So it helps to have that overall view as to what's going on. But are you able to maybe just tell us a little bit about some typical issues that you were coming across? What were the typical kind of support calls that you were getting involved in?
We had quite a nasty one in a way. We had vCenter would crash quite regularly, but it would always crash after it was rebooted. So if you did Windows updates, when it would come up, it would lose the database. So it would lose, the database would become corrupted. There would be no inventory. You couldn't see the service. You couldn't connect to anything. You were in no man's land almost.
Right. And I guess, there's a lot of stuff that touches on vCenter as well. So, I guess from a backups perspective, your backups kind of all rely on vCenter. So if vCenter's not there, then all of a sudden your backups aren't working, and potentially all kinds of other problems. So what did you need to do in order to rectify those problems?
So looking at that, reading up as you do, Google and other things, you were getting told rebuild the vCenter, other things.
Wow.
Did find that I logged a ticket with VMware, and in logging that ticket with VMware, they logged on, rectified the database corruption. And they said to me in the call, we are the only, we can do this because we've got access to that database. We know where the corruptions are. We can actually get it back for you.
Yeah.
But later on in the conversations, we found out this was due to a update.
Right.
And if you called that vCenter update, it would stop the crash.
Right. So you had a known issue. I guess that was going to be written into a KB somewhere, right?
Somewhere, yeah. Now, the other issue was every time you rebooted the vCenter, it wasn't necessarily going to come back up.
Right.
So there was a fear in almost updating it because you didn't know what was going to happen when you did update it, if it was going to come back or become corrupted.
Okay.
So in the end, we ended up with VMware on the call while we upgraded it in case it did corrupt to fix the issue. And since installing the update, we've not had an issue at all.
Brilliant. You're still on that vCenter server on Windows, right? So your next step is going to be getting from there to the appliance, and that should hopefully make it a bit more stable as well.
Yeah, and the issue there, we were going to go to 6.7, but the telephone, the voice over IP company can't. Won't guarantee that it would work. It would work with vCenter 6.7, so we can't go to that until, and that's the only way to go to the VCSA.
There's no horizontal migration, so you need to do that upgrade as part of that process.
So that
makes perfect sense. So you've got some real issues. These aren't just restart some services or turn it off and turn it back on again. These are your database is screwed. You either need to have some kind of insider tools that only GSS have got access to, or you're looking at redeploying vCenter. And when you consider, you're now running vSAN, so vSAN. Your control plane for vSAN is vCenter, so you've got to have some confidence there. So being able to have that insight into what's going on is super important. I guess the other challenge was that kind of came along a little bit earlier this year. So this is all stuff that was happening prior to COVID, but then we've got we had COVID-19 turned up, and all of a sudden we hit a bunch of other problems. Not least of those is the fact that in some organizations, I don't know if it's the case with DHU, but some organizations, they had to furlough staff. So you've got a smaller number of staff looking after your business as usual. So those resources then become stretched ever thinner. And even if they didn't have to do that, then nobody's allowed into an office because we're on lockdown. Everyone's has to work from home. So there's nobody there in the data center to hard power cycle a server if something goes wrong, for example. So these are these are constraints we were working. These are struggles that you're working with in the first place, and then coronavirus comes along, and just makes things 100 times worse. So I guess the other stuff in terms of so you've obviously been working with the team at DHU for a long time now, and we've talked about the kind of issues that you were seeing. So the kind of outages, the kind of incidents that you're having to deal with. And from what I understand, since you've deployed Runecast Analyzer, you've been able to be a little bit more strategic. You've got more oversight into what's going on in the environment. And so what kind of typical findings did you find when you first deployed Runecast? In fact, no, let's even go back a step further beyond that. So you obviously had the conversation with them and said, okay, yeah, we've got this tool. We think it might be able to help us get out of the hole that we're in, whereby nobody's got time to do anything. We can't really, any downtime that occurs is going to be even worse because we don't have people in the offices. So you're going ahead and you're deploying Runecast Analyzer. So can you just walk me through that installation process, the kind of deployment, and how long that took, and the kind of findings that you got from it?
So the actual deployment phase was relatively quick. It was painless. Downloaded the appliance, the OVA, installed it, allocated the IP addresses for the appliance, set it up. It was up. It was probably in 15, 20 minutes. We were almost up and running. The issue we did have was the certificate, getting the certificate to work. That's something we're still working on.
Okay.
But that was quite, I say that part was relatively quick, and we could see instantly the environment and how the environment was what was out there, what was happening.
Sure. And I mean, you absolutely don't have to mention anything specific to their environment, but you know, it's great to be able to kind of get some sort of indication.
Yeah.
How bad were things compared to how you thought they were going to be before you deployed Runecast Analyzer?
I didn't know how bad it was going to. I was so we were a bit. You're worried because you don't know what you've got out there.
Exactly.
And when we installed it, you could see. You know, the first thing I did after watching a couple of your webinars, and I did the old purple screen of death and saw that we had sort of 6 or 7.
Yeah, we see that a lot when we're doing proof of concepts and things like that. People think their environment is perfect, and purple screens of death and like really critical severity security issues as well. So it's always good to get an idea of, you know, you thought it was going to be this bad. Was it this bad? Was it this bad? Was it I'm looking for a new job bad? But you know,
it was. I'd say.
Yeah, sorry, John, go.
It was about 65% on issues, I think. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But it did highlight, with the purple screen of death ones, you looked at them, most of them were, because you're on 6.5, you need to upgrade to 6.7 update 3.
Or at the very least, patch your 6.5. Yeah, that's often the case.
But a lot of those you couldn't patch. So there's still, I think we still have a couple of issues that we can't do much with because of the versions,
because which is now haven't been backported into 6.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is forcing, which is not forcing, but it helps highlight you and focus on issues that you need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess from a vSphere perspective, you know, it was the case up until earlier this year that vSphere 6.5 and vSphere 6.7 were both going end of general support at the same time, and I think that is November next year, so just over a year away. Since then, there's been a decision taken that 6.7 is going to have a somewhat extended lifespan. I think it's got another year on top of that, but you know, if you're on 6.5, you've got basically a year to get off it now. And given, you know, I spoke to a lot of customers about the struggles of vSphere upgrades. If you're looking to get off those older versions, you know, don't leave it until 2 weeks before it goes end of general support. These things are super important. They're super tricky. I mean, I used to run roadshows, and those roadshows would be earmarked for 4 hours to cover the content, and quite often we'd run over into 5. And you know, sometimes I think I did one at VMworld a couple of years ago, and it was almost 6 hours long. And you know, even we got to the end of that, and people still had questions. So it's a really complex. The automation of the process has got better, but it's a really complex topic. So give yourself plenty of time, do all of the planning, and you can use tools like Runecast Analyzer to give you those kind of insights into, you know, even if nothing else, you can use it to highlight the risks that are inherent in your environment to your business, and you know, whether this be healthcare or any other industry. You know, we want to be able to make sure that we can highlight all of these potential risks in your environment. I guess one of the things I wanted to pick up on is, you know, we often get asked about, again, this kind of feeds into the upgrade side of things, but also business as usual. The problems that you see in environments whereby, you know, maybe you've deployed those servers and they were all good, they were on the HCL, the firmwares, the drivers, everything was updated when you deployed them. But that might have been 3 years ago, it might have been 5 years ago. And often what happens is over that lifespan, that kind of 3 to 5 year life cycle, some drivers are you're gonna want to upgrade drivers and firmware and things like that to make sure you're still getting the best performance. But also some drivers that were qualified at the point that you installed, bugs are discovered in them, and some of these bugs can be fairly critical. So you need to actually, you need to be checking your environment for these things to make sure that you're actually, you know, when you've got a driver or a firmware that's got a bug in it, you need to be able to see immediately when that happens, so you can replace it with one that is known to be fixed, essentially. Did you have any kind of problems with drivers or firmwares or anything like that, John?
Yeah, we did. looking at that, we were able to almost get the environment is ready to go to 6.7 in the fact that we're checking the is now on the Runecast where we check if we can upgrade.
Yeah, and the hardware compatibility side of things.
Yeah, we checked that and we've made sure, and we've seen drivers that we need to do, which then we've installed and done them via the VOIP. VMware Update Manager, we've done it via there. So
yeah, and you're running vSAN as well, so it becomes even more important, that side of things, because you don't want to be you don't want to be the organization that recommended to one of their customers, oh well, you should migrate to vSAN, but we forgot about the driver side of things, and so now maybe you've got some data loss, and you don't want data loss in any organization that's dealing with healthcare as well. So these things are all important. So one other thing, conscious of time, what do we do? We've got about 15 minutes left, but that's supposed to be including Q&A. So let's kind of whittle through this. How are we doing in terms of questions? Oh no, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's just go back one. Just go and check how we're doing for questions. Where's my questions tab gone? Oh, we've got no questions as yet. So if anyone's got any questions, please do feel free to drop them into the chat, into the Q&A, and we'll deal with them once we've got through these last few points for us to discuss. So yeah, so one of the things I really wanted to kind of bring up is this concept that a lot of organizations that we speak to, they're kind of their IT staff are completely behind the idea of using a tool like Runecast Analyzer to have that visibility as to what's going on. But there is this there's the concern that it's a double-edged sword. So it's like, okay, great, I've got all of this visibility, I can now see exactly where all of the problems lie. But at the same time, if it finds lots and lots of things, firstly, is that going to make me look bad? And secondly, how do I decide which of these things to address first? There's a lot of red. How do I get rid of that red? How do you deal with that? Do you have any kind of methods to kind of break these things down, or different ways to decide where to attack first?
Yeah, the way we've been attacking it, I suppose, or hitting it, was to go in, analyze the environment, then go to the inventory view, break down till you get to the hosts, choose one of the vCenters.
Sure.
Choose a host, look at the issues we've got on that one host, put it in maintenance mode, because we found initially that the number was really high. When we put it in maintenance mode, the number dropped because all of the VMs and things moved off.
Sure. Yeah.
And then use that as your baseline to work on, and choose, and then get rid of everything. Just do criticals. Just focus on the criticals.
Great stuff.
So export that as an Excel spreadsheet. Look at the issues, find the fixes. If it was a download the driver, we'd download the driver, add it into Update Manager, and do it that way, and hit it by breaking it down, small steps, baby steps, however you want to call it.
Yeah, it's a really important thing. We do get. I'll be honest. A lot of the times we do proof of concepts, and we do have some customers that actually decide. They deploy it. They have a look at what the findings are. They're like, okay, this is great. I've got all this visibility, but I'm not showing this to my boss, and so because of that, we don't want to go down the road of a purchase. So that's kind of the end of that story. And obviously from my perspective, I work for the organization, so I have to make sure that I'm fighting our side of the battle. And it's like, well, if you think of it another way, the one resource that you can never ever get back, if finances, you can claim back disk space, you can claim back RAM, you can do things to do things with less compute, etc., but you can never get time back. And time has been a really massive constraint, especially during COVID-19. So, if you've got that visibility, it's like, okay, you have all of these risks in your environment, and then you choose to say, I'm going to put my head in the sand, I don't really want to do anything about this, then it's certainly an approach, but it's not one that I would recommend.
No.
But yeah, I do like the approach, the idea that, you know, instead of thinking it as being, okay, well, you've got 200 findings, you need to deal with all 200 of them right now. Use the severity there to determine, okay, these are the things that have really massive potential impacts. Break things down so you can do things in smaller chunks. And the other thing is, you know, a lot of those that are in the higher severity areas, the reason they're high severity is because, as I said, they've got potential to bring down your environment, to be an attack vector for, you know, some kind of breach or something like that. But if you look at what you need to do to resolve these, a lot of the time, all you need to do is deploy a patch. And in deploying that patches often have fixes for lots of things. So just by deploying that one patch, by upgrading yourself to a more recent version, you're going to get rid of a lot of the other issues as well.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, it's just breaking it down. Don't think of it as like this massive wall that you need to attack. Just take it brick by brick. So yeah, that's a really important way. Yeah.
You also found as well, by doing that, the customer as well as us, we would run the analyze, and then we'd move on to the next host. But because of the environment, we were doing one host at a time. You'd find at the end of the week, you'd run another scan and go, almost get excited that you'd seen the number drop by a large amount. You could see, even if the week had been like a really bad week and you thought, I've not achieved anything this week.
Yeah.
Look at Runecast Analyzer and go, well, I've achieved something because I've knocked 30 or 40 issues off of this.
And that view in the all issues view, where you see that graph and it comes down and down and down. And, you know, ideally we want to see it dwindling down to zero at the other end of that graph. And then once you get there, you want it to stay there. So if once things start moving away from that baseline, then you know you've got some more work to do at that point. But yeah, it's a great. That's actually a really good way of looking at it. You know, do it on a Friday afternoon once you've had a hard week. And Friday afternoon, you know, it's just like the week is a write-off. What have I actually done? Yeah, I suppose it's a great way to look at, you know, what you've actually achieved over the course of the week. I did have one other question that I wanted to cover, and then I guess we can start wrapping up and looking at questions. But so from my perspective, one of the really valuable things, you know, we've got quotes from customers around the value that Runecast Analyzer brings to the table for them. But in an organization whereby the IT staff might be more generalist rather than specialist, you know, they might not be VMware specialists. You know, obviously in the case of DHU, they're engaging with Excell Group in order to, you know, to gain access to some of this expertise. But you know, how do you find that it helps in terms of the conversations that you have with the team at DHU, because they've now got access to the data that's within Runecast Analyzer? Maybe they're starting to understand a little bit more about how vSphere works, how vSAN works, all of these things, the things that can potentially cause outages, etc. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, they've your typical conversation with one of the, you know, if you've got a manual for this, well, take them to the website now, look at this. Oh, this is really easy. I can see everything. You go through it. There isn't a need. The information's there. You just got to know how to filter it.
Yeah.
And it's empowering them to look at stuff. The manager there has said, you know, I can look at things like VMware tools. I can start upgrading VMware tools on hosts.
Yeah.
While if I'm in a meeting or something, I can upgrade all of those hosts. That takes the number off, because then I can see the number go down. So we're all in this thing of getting the number down. And it's a really good habit. It's a really good way of looking at it as well. But in terms of the habit, you know, those little wins, you know, just things like, oh well, I've upgraded VMware tools because there was a bug in that version. Great, it's a nice, easy thing that you can do, and you don't necessarily need to be a VMware expert in order to right-click upgrade VMware tools. He's rung me a couple of times and said, I've noticed there's this. If we knock that one off, it will take about 100 off. Can you look at it? So it's that, you know, there's a transparency between us. Absolutely. If I say there's an issue, he can go on, he can look. They can view the document. It's not me saying that's a risk. It's
yeah, so they have that
with
visibility.
the
And
facts.
I guess that's kind of the important bit, isn't it? They've got the visibility, and that's going to help with their confidence. And it means that, you know, potentially there's a lot of the less technical stuff that then needs to come up the chain to you, which frees you up to do more stuff that's delivering business value to them. So things like upgrading that telephony system, for example. So, you know, if you've got things that you need to do to work with the third party that's supporting that, then, you know, that time is available to you.
Yeah.
So I just want to, we're kind of almost at the end of the session at this point. But I do have, so we're going to do some Q&A in a second, but I do have one quote that we got. So to DHU Healthcare, you know, we're really, really grateful to them. They provided us with a case study. So if you're working in the healthcare sector, and, you know, you'd like to learn more about some of the problems that we really help them with, then you can get this case study. I believe you can download it from our website. If not, if you drop by our booth within the conference platform, the team there will be more than happy to show you where you can get that from. And if you want to learn anything more about Runecast Analyzer as well, please go to the booth, and there'll be people there that can talk all about the product. And, you know, if you want to organize a demo, we can absolutely do that. But the quote that I saw from the case study that we got from DHU was that, you know, it does the job of more than one person for less than the cost of one person. And it's a really kind of down to earth way of looking at it. You know, when people start looking at things like total cost of ownership, there's all kinds of different ways you can calculate these things. But realistically, you know, if it's doing that job, it's kind of like we have a quote from one of our other customers where it's like having a highly trained VMware expert on your staff 24/7 monitoring your environment. And, you know, those highly trained VMware experts, they're not cheap. So, you know, that comes into it as well. So yeah, I just really want to say thanks to you know, the folks at DHU for allowing us to have this chat with John, and also to John for joining us on this. I have now moved across to the any questions slide. This time I meant to do it. We've got 3 minutes left. Let's have a look. So we actually don't have any questions. We've got some comments. So John Cockcroft, thanks for this comment, John. This is also a really good one. Not only is it a really good tool for, you know, for showing yourselves internally that you've helped remove risk, but it's a great way of showing any auditors that you've got to deal with the progress that you're making from a compliance perspective. And I spoke in the ISO 27001 talk I did earlier today around the importance of having that evidence that, you know, you're working towards a more secure environment. And then once you get to that secure environment, you kind of want to work to stay there. So you want to see that all issues view staying flat wherever possible. If it starts spiking up again, you know you've got some more work that you need to do. So yeah, thanks very much for that, John. We've probably got 2 more minutes, so which probably isn't enough time. Let me just check we haven't got any more questions. Oh yeah, John put it in the Q&A as well. Yeah, so I guess on that note, let's just wrap this up. So on that note, just from Excell Group, do you have anything that you wanted to say, John?
See, if you want to get in contact with us, the details below, or give us a call on the number. Awesome. There. Just reach out to us.
Awesome. And, you know, you don't just deal with healthcare, right? You deal with across many different sectors.
Various different customers.
Awesome. Great stuff. And then from the team at Runecast, if you'd like to learn more, please do visit the booth. If you've got time, that would be really great. The team there, we've got a whole bunch of people manning that booth ready to take your questions. But alternatively, if you go to runecast.com, you can sign up for a free 14-day trial. If you want to learn more or organize a deep dive into any of the specific functionality, please do reach out to us at innovate@runecast.com. You can tweet us at Runecast on the Twitters. On that's pretty much all I've got. And we're 1 minute early for finishing, but I think we've covered everything we needed to. So thanks again to everyone who's joined this session and everyone who's stuck with it all the way through, even when I'm doing things like dropping my clicker. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.